Welcome into the show. Happy Wednesday, everybody. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now, and we're live right here on Chat Sports. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, I appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. I'm Chase Sr. We have a lot to get to on the Philadelphia Eagles front on this Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. Producer Chip on the ones and twos. You'll see and hear from him coming up here in just a little while, and there is so much for us to talk about on the docket for today's show. Could the Eagles hire Jason Kelce as an assistant coach? Some interesting buzz there coming from the Kay Adams show when she had Lane Johnson on today. The New York Giants in shambles. Why is that? Because the Eagles signed Saquon Barkley. Some legendary clips coming from Hard Knocks, the off-season edition, as HBO did that for the first time. We'll take a look at some Eagles contract extension candidates, 3 players who Howie Roseman and the Birds could ink to deals going into training camp or the 2024 season. Could Philadelphia reacquire Hassan Reddick? We're going to dive into that and then also do a mailbag. You can start getting those questions in right now by using the hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat. Let's do a real one roll call because Flipping the Bird 85 gets us started with the $2 super chat. What up, Chase? Been a minute, but you guys rock. Hope all is well with you. Hope all is well with everybody out there. And keep in mind that Eagles training camp begins next week. We're going to start bringing you some great updates here on the show, and we're less than a month away from Eagles preseason football. E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles. The regular season also quickly approaching as we're really going to start to ramp up our coverage. I want everybody right now to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Please do that to support the show, and let's get the comment section going. We're coming to you live from Studio H in the Chat Sports Studios, but where is the Bird Gang? Get that comment section popping, and we'll start to give you some shout-outs here. I see GOG is in the chat, Jesus M, Key Time Bill, Jedediah, Earth, BDG Bullet. I saw Buddy Bear was in the building a little bit earlier, and now the location's starting to come in. Leonard from the Philippines. How about that? Flipping the Bird 85, West Virginia. Mark Roberts, Central Oklahoma. Shippensburg, Pennsylvania from Scott. Gray's Bully Camp saying what up. GOG is in Arizona. Jedediah, Springfield, Missouri. Virginia from Spencer. Clearfield, Pennsylvania from BDG. Cool Rain said same. Grays, Topping, Virginia. It's great to see everybody hanging out here with us live on Eagles Now. Chip, we've been talking a lot of Sixers of late, leading the way on 76ers now. Great free agency period for them. Now we start to shift our focus a little bit toward the football season. What are you most excited about for the Birds coming up?
Ooh, most excited about, number one, I'm really excited to see Jalen Hurts remind everybody why he almost won an MVP.
All right.
I cannot wait for all the people down him saying he's not top 10, he's not this, he's not that. He's going to show everybody why he was the best player in that Super Bowl.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Chip bringing the heat. RGT is watching from Jersey. Ralph Elliott from Ghana as we go international once again. Kelly, Maryland. Ohio baby from Donnie. Robert saying the Eagles are going to win. Petersburg, Virginia from Earth. Cool Rains can't wait to see Saquon in action. Aver Ixity, where I'm from, I'll just say you're welcome for KFC. I don't know what you mean there. I want to see Paris Campbell from Jedediah. All right. Some people confusing me with some of the spelling, but it's all good. All right, so here's the deal. Here's our Super Chat menu for today. We have a Chat Sports team workout coming up in about 2.5 hours. We're going to Barry's. A lot of people familiar with that nationwide. I already got my workout in this morning, too. I got a full body workout in at the gym from 8 to 9. It was awesome. I was at the Major League Baseball All-Star game last night, so it has been a very busy last couple of days, and let's have some fun here on the show. Let's have this show serve as a warm-up for our workout a little bit later, but we'll also do a beer bong and a beer boot if we get a $50 super chat or a $100 super chat because we need some carbs, right? So a $5 super chat, I'm doing 5 jumping jacks. 10, we're doing some push-ups. 20, we're doing some squats. Help us get ready for our Chat Sports team workout. We also are going to do a mailbag for segment number 4. Use the hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat. And if you're ready to talk some birds, make some noise. I want everybody to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. 85 people watching live right now. Let's get that number well past 100. You can help us do that by hitting that thumbs up icon and liking the video right now. Segment number 1. Could the Eagles hire Jason Kelce as an assistant coach? Lane Johnson saying he has a locker in the coach's office. And then as part of that segment number 1, the Giants in shambles about Saquon Barkley going down I-95 and signing with Philadelphia within this division. Chip's ready to go. I'm ready to go. Everybody else is ready to talk some Philadelphia Eagles. You got that notification. You're a part of the Noti gang. You are a real one. That means that you're joining us early. And with that, let's officially ramp it up. Let's run it up. And let's get it underway. Eagles Now live on this July 17th starts right now. Let's go. Let's get it going. Welcome into the show. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., and here's what's coming up. Could the Eagles hire Jason Kelce as an assistant coach? Also, the New York Giants in shambles about Saquon Barkley signing with the Philadelphia Eagles within this division. Those two stories coming up, but we start right here. So I'm scrolling through X, formerly known as Twitter, a couple of hours ago, and I see that Jason Kelce is trending. And I say to myself, why is Jason Kelce trending? And then I come across this tweet from Kay Adams. She had on Lane Johnson on her show. And the tweet read as such. Doesn't sound like Jason Kelce can stay away from the Eagles. Does he still have a locker space? He's at the facility how often throughout this offseason? And will he coach for the Philadelphia Eagles? As we know on X and on social media, it has been a very active last couple of days. It's almost as if something monumental and historic happened a couple of days ago during the weekend, and since that, social media has been going wild. If you know, you know. Here is that dialogue between Kay Adams and Lane Johnson. Kay, I feel like Jason Kelce should coach, though. Lane Johnson responds, most definitely. He was in the building maybe more than some of the players this offseason. Kay stopped him and said, hold on. Jason Kelce retires and you're telling me he was in the building more than you this offseason? Lane Johnson, yeah, he was in there lifting, he was stretching, talking, seeking advice from people on his future. I think he'll be in the building once or twice a week. Kay then responds by saying, does he have real estate where he can put his stuff down inside the facility? Lane, he has a locker in the coach's office. So that has started some speculation. Could the Eagles really hire Jason Kelce as an assistant coach, either now or looking ahead into the future? What a story this would be for one of the most legendary Eagles in the history of this organization, the best center in the history of this team, and one of the best centers of all time. Now, as we know, Jason Kelce retiring this offseason after 13 seasons in which he was an incredible player, multi-time All-Pro, just iconic on and off the field, lived and breathed what it's like to be a Philadelphia Eagle, the epitome and the fabric of what this city is all about as an athlete and as a citizen. He will continue moving forward to do his New Heights podcast with his brother Travis Kelce, who signed a contract extension this offseason with the Kansas City Chiefs. And Kelce, on top of those broadcasting duties, is set to join ESPN's Monday Night Countdown, and I think he's going to be very successful in those endeavors. But remember back to what Nick Sirianni said after the year, that Jason Kelce always has a place on the Eagles. And if Kelce wanted to coach, if he wanted to consult, I think the Eagles would allow him to do that. Shoot, he helped Howie Roseman scout and watch film of Cam Jurgens when the Eagles drafted him a couple of years ago. Doing media work is what Jason Kelce is going to do now, but could he coach at some point down the road? I would not rule this out, and it would be awesome to see him on the sideline for Philadelphia. And keep in mind that Jeff Stoutland, who is the best offensive line coach in the NFL, is 62 years old. How long is Stout going to coach with this organization? So I don't think that it would be crazy for Kelce to either help coach the offensive line as an assistant or be the Eagles' offensive line coach at some point, because he's a very smart player, high football IQ, and he knows the nuances of offensive line play. And we've seen that when he's helped fellow offensive linemen on this Eagles team, but also away from the facility, helping other offensive linemen in improving their craft. Since we're talking about Jason Kelce, I thought this would be a fun poll question for today's show. Who is your all-time favorite Philadelphia Eagle? I had a very difficult time coming up with my top 5. This is what I'm going with. Brian Dawkins is the background of my phone. It's been that case for years. Whenever I get my first dog, I'm hoping it's a Doberman because I grew up with Dobermans. I am going to name that Doberman Dawkins. My second favorite Philadelphia Eagle is Jason Kelce. Those are my 2 favorite Eagles jerseys that I own. 3 through 5, it was kind of hard. Brandon Graham I've grown up with, and for a lot of the same reasons that I love Jason Kelce and Brian Dawkins, he's about this city. He's about being a Philadelphia Eagle. He's also had a terrific career and had maybe the most iconic play in the history of this organization in Super Bowl 52. After that, it was so fun watching Brian Westbrook in his prime, a tremendous player who, if he were to play nowadays, I think he would even be better, especially in this fantasy era. But when fantasy was starting to take off, Brian Westbrook was like the wonder kid for fantasy football nerds. And then Malcolm Jenkins comes in at number 5 because he possesses a lot of the same traits and attributes on and off the field that Brian Dawkins, Jason Kelce, and Brandon Graham did. I thought about putting Donovan McNabb inside this top 5, but while I loved him as a player, I was never a huge fan of how he never took accountability, and that is not the Philadelphia way, although I do think he's underrated as an all-time Eagle. Before we get to story number 2 on today's show, if you want to get a Cooper DeJean shirt, great conversation starter, you'll look good, you'll feel good, you can support the show and support the birds. Get yours today at chatsports.com/DeJean, the word John. It's so Philadelphia. So are these shirts. We'll attach that link to the pinned comment, and we'll put that link down below in the show notes of today's Philadelphia Eagles. Now, we move forward to segment number 2. The New York Giants are in shambles about the Philadelphia Eagles signing Saquon Barkley in NFL free agency, and we know that's the case because of video coming out from a Hard Knocks segment throughout this offseason. Let's talk about that. First, if you hate the New York Giants, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video and type FNYG down in the comment section. Now, why are the New York Giants in shambles about losing Saquon to the Philadelphia Eagles? Well, as we know, Saquon was the face of that organization. He was probably the most well-known player on that team. And when he was healthy, a terrific player on the football field. HBO this offseason doing a Hard Knocks show for the offseason for the first time in the history of that program, which I think is awesome. From the narrator, Liev Schreiber, to the all-access look that you get, to the cinematography of Hard Knocks, I always watch. And the New York Giants were featured this offseason. From draft to free agency, Hard Knocks really documenting everything behind the scenes for New York. And for the purpose of today's show, it featured the Giants' dialogues with Saquon Barkley this offseason and trying to work out a deal, trying to bring him back and retain him, and then also the inevitable ending of him signing with the Eagles. And let's run through a couple of things and a couple of takeaways that I have from watching some of these episodes. There was a phone call between general manager Joe Schoen and Saquon Barkley where Schoen told Saquon, hey, we're going to let you hit free agency out of respect for you and how much we love you. Go test the market and see what you can get. that was a fair move by the New York Giants because they didn't want to put Saquon or the organization through the franchise tag ordeal like they did last offseason. And it didn't really end up working out for both parties. It was kind of awkward, the relationship that they had. But for any Giants fans or for any member of the Giants organization that are now hurt about Saquon leaving, it started with the Giants disrespecting Saquon by not giving him a long-term deal, coming off a great season during the 2022 campaign, and giving him that franchise tag. So if you're a Giants fan watching this show right now, you're bummed that Saquon is now rocking midnight green, blame your own organization because it's by their doing. There was also a conversation between Joe Schoen and John Mara, the Giants owner, where Schoen questioned if another team was going to give Saquon Barkley big money in free agency. He said, are we sure that another team is going to pay Saquon that type of value given the position that he plays? The Giants also were not willing to go north of $12.5 million per year. And Schoen asked Saquon's agent if Saquon was going to sign with the team inside the NFC East. And Schoen said he wanted to prepare himself mentally if that was the case. What did the Philadelphia Eagles do? They gave Saquon $26 million in guaranteed money over the first 2 years, which is pretty much $13 million per season, upping the Giants' offer. And here's what the Giants owner had to say about Saquon before he found out that Saquon was not going to return. I'll have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that. He's the most popular player we have by far. This is music to my ears. The Eagles have owned the Giants over the last decade. Philadelphia is 16-4 against New York. They've been the more well-run organization, the more talented organization, and recently they've had far more success. And to see John Mara kind of walking down the hallway slowly with his head down after finding out that Saquon is going to the Eagles, walking sadly back to his office, it was great. And Joe Schoen did say, we're going to be fine. But are the Giants going to be fine? Because looking ahead to the 2024 season, they just simply do not have a lot of talent. Now, let me give you some business and life advice, right? You are worth what somebody is willing to pay you. The New York Giants were not willing to match the Philadelphia Eagles' offer of $26 million in guaranteed money throughout the first 2 years of that contract. The Eagles were willing to pay up. The Eagles and Howie wanted Saquon Barkley. They were willing to pay him more money. The Giants could have avoided all of this by paying Saquon Barkley, by showing him that they wanted him, by not giving him the franchise tag. They disrespected him, in my opinion, with the franchise tag, with that offer, how they've treated him, how they haven't built up that offensive line, how they haven't brought in other good complementary pieces around Saquon Barkley. And it's been wild to see how Giants fans have responded to all of this. Calling him a traitor, hoping that Saquon gets hurt. And I'm tired of this personally because growing up in the Philadelphia area, shout out to Westchester, the 610, went to Temple, the 215. I've always heard Eagles fans are the worst. They're the worst fans in football. They're despicable. Yet I see all this chatter on social media of Giants fans saying, I hope that we play Philadelphia, we beat them, and I hope that Saquon Barkley gets hurt. Scum of the earth. Now, as part of this conversation, I do think that the Giants are going to end up regretting this because I think Saquon ends up having a monster season with Philadelphia for these reasons. Point number one, he's such a talented back. In this generation of the NFL, he's one of the more talented backs that we've seen. High character, great player. Last 4 years, rushing numbers. He's put up really good production when he's been able to stay on the field. Of course, in 2020, disappointing. Only the 2 games played. The torn ACL, of course, taking away from some of the special moments that he had early in his career and then trying to come back from those injuries. He's been banged up from time to time with nagging stuff like a high ankle sprain. But outside of 2020, he hasn't missed like that much time. In 2021, 13 games played, 162 carries, 593 yards, and 2 touchdowns. In 2022, a career season coming off, a couple of frustrating ones where he found his groove again from what he did the first couple of years that he was in the NFL as a dynamic and special player. 295 carries, 1,300 yards, and 10 touchdowns. And then this past year, 247 carries, nagged by that ankle, 962 yards, and 6 touchdowns. The Giants as a team were just atrocious. And then on top of the talent conversation with Saquon, as part of that, it's the dual threat nature to his game. He can also catch the ball out of the backfield. And look, I think this is criminal how seldom he was used as a pass catcher in that Giants offense. I hope that Philadelphia targets him more in the pass game because they have to find ways to get him the football, because when the ball is in Saquon's hands, he can make things happen. You saw in 2022, he had the 57 catches. That's great for 338 yards, but limited touchdowns, limited touches. I want to see Kellen Moore utilize Saquon a lot more in the passing game. And then the next part of this conversation, the Giants offensive line has been and is horrible. New York Giants in run block win percentage ranked the last 2 years, 31st and 26th. Philadelphia, on the other hand, the last 2 years, 1st and 2nd. Stats via ESPN there. Even with Jason Kelce retiring, I still think this Eagles offensive line is going to be a top 5, top 10 unit. And then these numbers, according to Pro Football Focus, the last 3 years, the Giants in run block win percentage, 30th, 14th, and 21st. The Eagles, 3rd, and 5th. So Saquon, really for the first time in his career, is going to be able to run behind a legitimate offensive line. He's also going to be able to play with some supremely talented players. The last time Saquon played with an elite skill guy, Odell Beckham Jr. And now Saquon is looking around that Eagles huddle, and he sees A.J. Brown, he sees Devontae Smith, he sees Dallas Goedert, and Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts in the backfield with Saquon is going to help out this Eagles rushing attack, but also the passing attack, because it makes the Eagles offense a lot less predictable. And I'm excited to see how Kellen Moore is going to be able to utilize Saquon. Ezekiel Elliott had some really good production under Kellen Moore. Dak Prescott had good production under Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore also likes creativity. He likes pre-snap motion. He likes pressing the defense and forcing the defense to cover every blade of grass. So for Saquon, he can run inside, he can run outside, he can line up in the slot, he can catch screen passes, wheel routes. There are just so many ways to utilize him, and he's going to have open opportunities considering the talent on this Eagles team. For those of you who do like playing fantasy, keep this in mind. I don't think that you should draft Saquon too high unless you just want rooting interest in him and the Eagles, because Eagles running backs had no carries last year from the 1-yard line. The brotherly shove had a 92.5% success rate. So with Saquon, if your fantasy league is dependent on touchdowns resulting and yielding in points, there could be a lack of touchdowns with Saquon. But as far as yards go, I think it's going to cause some havoc and do some damage. If you love the Birds, I want you to give me a Go Birds down below in the comment section. As you venture down there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's my goal for the 2024 season to get to 100,000 subscribers. We are approaching 80,000 subscribers right now. Once we get to that milestone, we're getting a plaque from YouTube, the silver plaque. And I want to celebrate that with all of you. So help us get there and hit that sub button. Segment number 1 in the books. Live here on Eagles Now. We're only getting ramped up. Segment number 2 coming up here momentarily. Here's our Super Chat menu. If you send in $5, help Chip and I get ready for our Chat Sports workout. We're doing some jumping jacks, push-ups, and squats, but also we like to have fun. We'll get some calories in us. $50 for a beer bong, $100 for a beer boot. Segment number 4 is going to be a mailbag, so use the hashtag Eagles or send in a Super Chat. We progress to segment number 2. Some contract extension candidates for the Eagles. BDG Bullet saying go Birds. Ralph Elliott saying go Birds. Jeff Phillips, go Birds. Cool Rains, I see you as well. Love to see it.
Go Birds!
Don't forget to get those questions in. Hashtag Eagles or send in a Super Chat. If you don't get questions in, we can't do a mailbag. All right. Segment number 2, let's let it rip. Coming up here on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, I want to take a look at 3 players currently on this Eagles roster who are contract extension candidates for Howie Roseman and this front office, with Eagles training camp quickly approaching. And with that being the case, if you are pumped up for the return of Eagles football, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, and type "Go Birds" down below in the comment section, because the season is going to be here before we know it. As for those contract extension candidates for the Eagles, one of the most obvious ones, of course, is Josh Sweat, the edge rusher for Philadelphia, who's been a great player development story for the Eagles. He was the number 1 overall recruit in the country coming out of high school. He tore up his knee, goes to Florida State, still had a successful career, but his draft status and his draft value kind of plummeted a little bit because teams had concerns about the knee. Eagles draft him, though, and he's ended up being a very, very valuable edge rusher for this Eagles defense over the last several years. And this offseason, there's been a lot of movement with him as an individual. The Eagles restructured his contract. Before that, it was Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick on the trade block for the Eagles at one point going into free agency. According to Jeff McClain of the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Birds gave Sweat permission to find a trade partner. Obviously, Sweat and his agent weren't able to do that. Sweat took to social media, and he basically hinted that his days with the Birds could be over. But he does return to Philadelphia under the construct of this contract here, which was restructured by Philadelphia. He will have a base salary in 2024 of $1.1 million, a cap hit of $8 million on the expiring contract that he signed a few years ago. And he's been a very consistent player. I know that the sacks haven't always been there, and year over year, he did go from 11 sacks, a career high in 2022, to 6 sacks in 2023. But sometimes I look at sacks as wins and losses for a pitcher. Doesn't tell the full story. A pitcher can go 5 of 12. But what is the ERA? What is the whip? If the ERA is hovering under 4 or sub 3, means you have a really good pitcher who's taking the bump every 5th day. And with edge rushers, sometimes it's not all about the sack numbers. It's about pressure rate, quarterback hits, and hurries. And Sweat has consistently produced in those areas. His pressure rate between 11.9 and 12.8% in 4 of the last 5 years per Sports Info Solutions. So he's been a really consistent player. And then you look at the overall stats. 6.5 sacks last year. In 2022, 11. In 2021, 7.5. In 2020, he had 6. I think one of the underrated parts of Josh Sweat's game from time to time, him being able to bat down balls at the line of scrimmage. I'm curious to see how he fits into Vic Fangio's scheme, because I think he's more of a traditional 4-3 end. Fangio going to go with the 3-4 defense, but either way, he should be able to hunt at least a little bit. And it's not like he was awful in 2023. The sacks were cut in half, but still had an overall Pro Football Focus grade of 68.3. Against the run, that's not his specialty, so not a surprise to see the grade low there at 53.3. What is his specialty, though? That's getting after the quarterback. 74.1 pass rush grade. He still had 68 pressures last year and 45 hurries, but just like a lot of the other players along that Eagles defensive line, close but no cigar as far as turning those pressures and those hurries into actual sacks. As part of his future, you do look at what the Eagles have done at the edge rusher spot. Nolan Smith going into year 2. They drafted him 30th overall 2 years ago. Philadelphia did sign Bryce Huff to a contract which pays him $17 million in average annual value. And then they did draft Jalix Hunt. It's a little bit of a contingency plan for Philadelphia, having some young players there in the case of Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, and still Bryce Huff, but also giving Bryce Huff that contract. So they give themselves some wiggle room, whether or not they want to give him an extension for Sweat or let him walk. That is to be determined. I'll tell you this, if it happens, if there's another move, we talk about it here on Eagles Now, and this is your one-stop shop for Eagles coverage every single day. We try to give you informative, entertaining, insightful Eagles analysis that involves you, the fan. We're approaching 77,000 subscribers. Help us get there and hit that sub button right now. Contract extension candidate number 2 is a player who's fallen under the radar the last couple of years, and that's Milton Williams. And I think that he is on the verge of potentially turning the corner and having a really good year in 2024. He's coming off a 2023 season in which he had a career-high 10 starts. He did have 42 tackles, but only a half sack, and he was a third-round pick out of Louisiana Tech in 2021. The video back then during the draft from the Eagles war room kind of went viral. There was a member of the Eagles front office who really didn't want to talk to Howie Roseman at the time. Howie Roseman was very pumped up about this selection, and we've seen in glimpses why Howie made that decision. Because Milton Williams has a lot of ability, and he's one of my favorite breakout candidates for the 2024 season because of the flashes that he's shown. The first couple of years that he's been in the NFL, he's really close to turning the corner, and we saw that last year. Overall PFF grade of 69.7, a run defense grade of 72.3. He can get a little bit better with the pass rush as far as the moves and the consistency at 58.8. He did tally in only 307 pass rush snaps, 22 pressures, 13 hurries, and 8 quarterback hits, 1 forced fumble. The body type, I like it. Coming out of Louisiana Tech, a little bit of a late bloomer, and he was a little bit raw as he's gotten more refined. I've seen moments where I'm like, Milton Williams can be a really good player. And at the position that he plays, the Eagles' defensive tackle spot, going to be an interesting position to kind of monitor here during training camp, preseason, and in the regular season because Jordan Davis is a huge unknown. We're not sure if he's a 2-down player or a 3-down player. I think that Jalen Carter can become a star in this league if he wants to become one. But also, Eagles are going to rotate those defensive tackles, and Milton Williams is going to be a part of that rotation. Be sure to give me a follow, by the way, on social media. I put out a lot of short-form content on my social media pages covering the Birds and the NFL. I'm at Chase_Senior on X, same handle on Instagram. Final extension candidate here for Philadelphia, number 3, is tight end Dallas Goedert. We've talked about Dallas Goedert a couple of times this offseason. Will he be here for the long haul? Could the Eagles look to trade him? Could they look to cut him to get out of that contract because of the way that that contract is structured? The Eagles, by giving Dallas Goedert a contract extension, can clear up $2.3 million in cap space by giving him a new deal. He did sign a 4-year, $57 million contract back a couple of years ago, which does run through 2025, but the final year, which is next year, is not guaranteed. At 29 years old, the Eagles could look to find his replacement. They could look to give him that extension to free up some cap space. Has a cap hit in 2025 of $11.8 million, a void charge in 2026 of $8.2. Either way, I think an extension is likely, or the Eagles try to restructure that deal because that's a little bit of a high cap hit for Goedert, his usage, and considering that the Eagles are now paying Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown in the future, and then you have that Saquon Barkley deal as well. Dallas Goedert's injury concerns certainly are there. That plays a role in this conversation. He missed 5 games in 2022 because of a shoulder injury. He missed 3 games in 2023 because of a forearm injury. Has not played a full season since 2018. What's interesting, I don't chalk him up for being all too much of an injury-prone player. I think he's run into some bad luck, and I think he's a really, really good player. I think he's one of the best all-around tight ends in the NFL. In fact, if you factor in pass catching and pass blocking, he might be number 2 behind George Kittle. The production obviously limited just because of what the Eagles have as far as their weaponry on that side of the ball. But when he has been targeted, he's been reliable, he's been dynamic and picking up yards after the catch, and he's widely respected across the entire NFL. I think he's supremely underrated just because of the impact that he has on this Eagles team, catching the ball, picking up yards after the catch, being a tough person to bring down in the open field, but his ability as a blocker, somewhat rare nowadays, in today's NFL, just because a lot of tight ends are used as weapons now. They're not always used as physicality types of weapons who can catch the ball and block. And that was noticed in ESPN's tight end rankings. Dallas Goedert came in at number 7 behind Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson, and surprisingly, David Njoku, who has kind of been a frustrating case study with the Cleveland Browns because he has so much ability, but last year he finally was able to put it together. And here's what ESPN had to say in that write-up on Dallas Goedert. He's one of the few that can block at a high level and still receive, that coming from a high-ranking NFL official. He's a lot like George Kittle in that way. Goedert can make things happen with the ball in his hands. His average of 5.4 yards after the catch per reception, ranked 4th among the tight end group. Certainly reflective. Philadelphia relies heavily on Goedert for run-pass option screens and underneath plays. He has seam stretching ability, but the presence of wide receivers A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith could continue to suppress his bottom line. I love what ESPN pointed out there with how sometimes in that RPO, he dribbles out into the flat after starting off as a blocker, and then Jalen Hurts is able to hit him with that pop pass while getting some blockers out in front. It's a dynamic play in this Eagles offense. I want to continue to see that be a staple in this Eagles offense, but I want to see Kellen Moore target and utilize Dallas Goedert more as a blocker, as a pass catcher, and as a player who can fall under the radar in that little hybrid role on some of those leak outs, because those plays have been consistently explosive plays for Philadelphia, and then run him down that seam because he can open up things for everybody else. And then he's very difficult to defend with that seam ball in between the numbers. Which player on that list is most deserving of a new deal? Drop me a name down below in the comment section, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button here on Eagles Now. Jeff Phillips, $5 super chat, my man. What is the likelihood of the Eagles getting Justin Simmons? We are going to include that in our mailbag, so stay tuned for that, Jeff. Really appreciate the donation there, and we'll answer that in our mailbag. I do owe you 5 jumping jacks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're getting ready for our Chat Sports team workout here in about 2 hours at Barry's Fitness. So thank you for helping us get ready for that. $10 for some push-ups, $20 for some squats, $50 for a beer bong, $100 for a beer boot. We need some cows for the workout as well. Segment number 3 coming up. Segment number 4 is our mailbag. Get those questions in right now. I see a couple that have come in from the homie and the real one, Byron Nails, as well as a couple of other ones. So hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat.
Got a few so far. Need some more, though. No doubt about it. Hashtag Eagles, baby. Hashtag
Elijah
Eagles.
Stovall is here. He said Goedert, most deserving of an extension. Go Birds 21 also said that. Go Birds 21. Eagles need Brandon Ayuk. How about you include that using the hashtag Eagles for our mailbag? Dennis Designs, $5. See, Dennis, I tried to answer your comment the other night, but for some reason, I can't comment back in the comment section on regular videos. Do you think that Jalen is better than Donovan McNabb? I do not yet. That is to be determined. Look, a lot of people don't realize that in the early 2000s, Donovan McNabb was the 3rd best quarterback for about 5 years there behind Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. He was elite. Now, he didn't have the longevity of Manning or Brady, but for a 5-year stretch there, he was excellent. I think he could have done a better job of taking care of his body. He gained some weight. He didn't want to run the football as much, which I thought took away from him pressuring the defense by way of running it and throwing it. The Eagles didn't do him a lot of favors with, outside of T.O., surrounding him with a legitimate wide receiver. Todd Pinkston, Freddie Mitchell, Reggie Brown. That only went so far. Kevin Curtis. He had T.O. for about 1 year pretty much, and we saw what he was capable of doing. But Jalen Hurts definitely has the ability to be better than Donovan McNabb. He wins the Super Bowl, it's over. Dennis Designs, I think Jalen may need to bulk up a little bit. See, I disagree. I think that as far as his stature and girth goes, as far as his body type, he's big enough. He's physical enough. In fact, I think he needs to get faster. And hopefully this year he's able to do that. Was the lack of speed last year due to the injury. Flipping the bird! A $20 super chat. I think all 3 need to be extended, but I'd say Goedert, Sweaty J, and Williams in that order. Chug that boot, boy! Hey, if we get a $100 super chat, I'll chug that boot. For 20, I got to do squats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 for flipping the bird. Appreciate that, my guy. We're up to $32 in super chats. If we also get to 100 in total, I will do the beer boot. Andrew Nathan using hashtag Eagles. Real ones. Getting those questions in right now. Continue to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video if you haven't. Lamont Lancaster, I think they can use another running back. Totally agree. Totally agree. I think they're a little bit thin there. Saquon, Kenny Gainwell, a good 1-2 punch. Will Shipley. Clemson legend is Chip loves because he went to Clemson, but he's a rookie. After that, Ty Davis Price, Kendall Milton. I want to see what Kendall Milton can do once the pad comes on because pads come on, I should say, because at Georgia, he was a really, really good goal line back because he's physical and hard to bring down. Kane Angel, didn't know y'all were live streaming today because I was watching my favorite NBA team, the Miami Heat, facing the Mavs, and the Heat won. I saw that. Nick Roloff, I heard him. He was live. He was going nuts about Khalil Ware throwing down some hammers. Good stuff right there. Rolly crushing. Okay, segment number 3. Could Hassan Reddick get traded again? And should the Eagles show interest in him? Let's get to stepping. Segment number 3 coming up right now. Welcome into Philadelphia Eagles Now. I'm Chase Sr. As always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, I appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. And on today's show, we were talking about this man to my right, former Eagles edge rusher Hassan Reddick, Temple alum, Camden, New Jersey native. Could he get traded again for the second time this offseason? And as part of that, should the Eagles try to bring him back? This is going to be a fun show here today, so let's get to it. The Jets let Bryce Huff walk. He signed with the Philadelphia Eagles, $17 million per year. And then New York gave up a 2026 third-round pick for Hassan Reddick. Sounds good, right? That means that the Jets going to replace Bryce Huff with Hassan Reddick. There's an issue, though. Hassan Reddick not happy with New York. He has so far this offseason skipped voluntary OTAs as well as mandatory minicamp, and he is seeking a lucrative contract extension. And as of right now, the Jets are not paying up. Bleacher Report also put together 7 bold predictions before training camp gets underway. And the Houston Texans, by the way, this week, the first team to get training camp started. Philadelphia will begin training camp on Tuesday. And as one of those predictions states, Hassan Reddick gets traded again. The Athletic reporting that Reddick wants a new contract that will pay him between $25 and $30 million. $25 million is what Myles Garrett is getting paid, and I don't think that Reddick is that caliber of a player. $30 million is shy of what Nick Bosa is getting paid, but it's right up there with Chris Jones and Max Crosby for some of the best defensive linemen and edge rusher in the game. And over the last 4 years, Hassan Reddick has had double-digit sacks in each season, and his production as an edge rusher in hunting the quarterback has been consistent, it's been elite, and it's been very impressive. So what if Howie Roseman reacquired Hassan Reddick? What a story that would be. Jets general manager is Joe Douglas. He used to work under Howie Roseman. Does it make sense, though? I find some issues in reacquiring Hassan Reddick, and we're talking about this on today's show because Bleacher Report put together those bold predictions, but a lot of Eagles fans have reached out asking me, Chase, should the Eagles try to bring back Reddick? It might not cost all that much. You first have to convince the New York Jets to do it. And they would be admitting that the trade for Hassan Reddick was a huge failure. They traded that 2026 third-round pick for Reddick, and he doesn't even practice with the team. It wouldn't make the Jets look good. It would kind of make the Eagles look like geniuses. Because they trade him away, they sign Bryce Huff, they get that third rounder, and then they end up bringing him back and they don't lose him to begin with. Another issue with the Eagles bringing him back, he's going to want a new deal regardless. And part of Reddick getting traded was him wanting that new contract. There was also chatter inside the Eagles locker room last year that players took issue with Reddick not playing within the scheme, and then in turn the Eagles got burned by that because Reddick was kind of freestyling in trying to rack up sacks. More sacks that you get, the more money that you can make as an edge rusher. And he wasn't playing team-oriented defensive football. But Hassan Reddick did say, I went to Temple, grew up an Eagles fan, I'm from across the bridge in New Jersey, and before he got dealt, he wanted to stay with the Philadelphia Eagles. This is where he wanted to be. But outside of that introductory press conference, Hassan Reddick has been nowhere to be seen. Here's what Bleacher Report had to say about that prediction. This is some good information too. That's why I want to bring it up. Reddick did not participate in the team's OTAs or mandatory minicamp. Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic reported that this was not an expected development for the Jets. He noted that the expectation by many was that Reddick would play out this season on his current contract. Instead of going to mandatory minicamp, Hassan Reddick was seen in Japan, walking around, umbrella, wearing some Japanese-looking garb. And as part of that garb, my man had a samurai strapped in the belt line, ready to take it out. Or is probably just for fashion. I'm going to side with the latter. More from Bleacher Report on Hassan Reddick. Rosenblatt also reported that Reddick is believed to be aiming for something in the $25 million to $30 million per season range. My goodness. That's a ton of money for a player who will turn 30 early in the year and is reliant on elite athleticism. One avenue to resolve this kind of contract situation is to add some incentives to the one-year contract as a short-term Band-Aid. That would be tough for the Jets. They have only $6 million in cap space right now, which is already cutting it close when you factor in an in-season budget. The other option is to trade the player. It's a wild possibility given that the Jets just gave up a third-round pick for him, but the whole situation has been unusual from the jump. With Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson as possible high potential young starters, the Jets may have to explore that option. So with that, we pop up today's poll question. What do you think? Should the Eagles and Howie Roseman try to reacquire Hassan Reddick? What a homecoming it would be. More thoughts on this coming up, but first we want to tell you about this deal thanks to our friends at Fanatic. These Brotherly Shove shirts on sale right now for just $22. Get yours today at chatsports.com/brotherly shove. The Eagles last year ran the Brotherly Shove at a 92.7% success rate, about 10% better than all teams in the NFL combined. It's the best play in football, and I love it, and it's so Philadelphia. I purchased my shirt. Get yours today. chatsports.com/brotherly shove. As far as that production for Hassan Reddick, he's played for 3 different teams in the last 4 years: Arizona, Carolina, Philadelphia. The moving around component of that has not kept him from being very consistent as an edge rusher in this league. In 2020, 12.5 sacks. 2021, 11. Career year in 2022, in the first year of that contract that he signed with Philadelphia, 16 sacks. And then in 2023, last year, it was frustrating for him, but it was frustrating for every member of that Eagles defense. He only had 11 sacks. And what's interesting is that he still had a really productive season last year in 2023. Look at the numbers stacked up from what he did 2 years ago. Numbers from last year on the left side of the screen. Numbers from the Super Bowl season on the right side of your screen. Pro Football Focus numbers went down a little bit from 81.1 to 75.2, but the pass rush grade going down from 90 to 75. Pressures, though, very even. 68 pressures in 2022 to 67 in 2023. Hurries and hits. He actually had more hits last year, 41 to 40. And then more hits, 13 to 10. And then the sacks decreased by 5. He narrowly missed out on a lot of sacks last year. Again, very frustrating defensive season for Philadelphia. Be sure to give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. Approaching 13,000 followers on X, 31,000 followers on IG. I always love chopping it up with the Bird Gang, so don't be a stranger. Say what's up. We have one more segment to get to live on Eagles Now.
Mailbag time.
Mailbag time.
Yeah,
Last
no.
call. Use the hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat to get on our mail sack.
Get on this sack.
You want to hop on this sack? Use the hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat.
Let's see. How we looking?
I think we got a lot of good ones with the supers.
Boom, boom. BDG Bullet is just firing away with the questions. He's asked 5 different questions. We'll get a couple of those in there for sure, BDG.
Let's get it, BDG.
These are all good questions too.
Let's get it.
Stuff, BDG. All right. Yeah, I think we're ready to rock.
Ready to rock with this mail sack?
I think we're good to go.
Again, if you want to hop on this sack, use hashtag Eagles or super chat. We're talking about this mail sack, this mailbag. Jesus Saves said, "Hey yo." See, you know what we're saying. It's pretty fitting that right now 69 people are watching live after we said that. Whoa! All right, round it out with the mailbag. Let's go. Yo, what's good? Welcome into the show. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Hope everybody out there is having a fantastic weekend and you have done something that is fun and fulfilling. And hopefully today's Eagles Now going to be fulfilling and enriching, to use another big word, because there's a lot that we want to uncover here on today's show. First, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Whenever the Eagles make a move, whenever there's a big storyline, whenever there's a big report or rumor, or if you want some top-notch elite Eagles analysis, this is your go-to spot. Hit that sub button. How quickly can we get to 77,000 subscribers? Let's start off today's mailbag with this question coming in from Jeff Phillips. What is the likelihood of the Eagles getting Justin Simmons? A lot of people are going to enjoy this question. A lot of people are fatigued by it because we have talked a lot about Justin Simmons throughout this offseason. Why? Philadelphia's been linked to him on numerous occasions because they have a weakness at that safety spot. It's a little bit of a void on this roster. You do have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, in addition to Reed Blankenship, but Sidney Brown's coming off a torn ACL. And then that other backup safety spot is kind of up for grabs right now. And Justin Simmons would make this defense better. He's a 4-time All-Pro. The Eagles struggled to generate turnovers last year. They were minus 10 in their turnover differential. Justin Simmons, since coming into the league in 2016 out of Boston College, 3rd-round pick by the Denver Broncos, leads the NFL in interceptions, and he played under Vic Fangio. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I think the likelihood is pretty good because the Eagles have cap space, they have a need, and especially if an injury happens at some point at the start of training camp, they could look to go that route. Plus, according to James Palmer, NFL Insider, Justin Simmons wants to go somewhere where he can win. He can win with Philadelphia. Also checks the character box. He's a team captain for the Denver Broncos. Flipping the Bird 85, $20 donation. Thank you so much, my brother. I think all their needs to be extended, but I'd say Goedert, Sweaty J, and Milton Williams in that order. Chug that boot, boy. Hey, preseason games coming up. We're going to be doing watch parties for all preseason games, watch parties for all regular season games. Boots will be had. And we're talking about the Das boot. 3 beers, 1 boot. Part of the reason why Flipping the Bird is asking this question, or more so making a comment, we did a video on 3 contract extension candidates for Philadelphia. Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Dallas Goedert. So he's putting those players in order for which players he'd say the Eagles should sign to contract extensions. I think Goedert, very valuable to what the Eagles do as a pass catcher and blocker. I think Josh Sweat has been a great player development story for Philadelphia, a consistent pass rusher who's getting a little bit older, but has still been highly productive. Pressure rate, sack numbers certainly back that up. And then Milton Williams, one of my favorite breakout candidates for this year. He's going into a pretty big 2024 campaign. Dennis Designs, good question here. Do you think that Jalen Hurts is better than Donovan McNabb? I do not think that Jalen Hurts is better than Donovan McNabb right now, but that can soon change. If Jalen Hurts gets back to his 2022 form, if he becomes consistent for a long time, if he wins a Super Bowl, it's all over, right? Now, a lot of people don't realize that Donovan McNabb, for about a 5-year stretch to start this century in the early 2000s, was the third best quarterback in the NFL behind Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. He did not have the longevity of Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, but he was truly elite and the third best quarterback in the NFL in the early 2000s. So good as a dual threat quarterback. And it's not like he had supremely talented weapons around him at the wide receiver spot. He pretty much had Terrell Owens for one full season. That was it before that fell apart. Todd Pinkston, Freddie Mitchell, Reggie Brown, Kevin Curtis, they are not number ones in this league. Now, he did have Brian Westbrook there for a little while. Pretty good tight end play, but not elite tight end play with Chad Lewis and E.J. Smith. But look, Donovan McNabb also had his shortcomings. And Jalen Hurts, because of those shortcomings, can become a better player. The game has also changed where it's more pass happy now. And I think that Hurts' deep ball accuracy, really good. His consistent accuracy in general, better than McNabb, who would throw some worm balls from time to time. But McNabb doesn't get the credit that he deserves for being with the Eagles from 1999 to 2009 and going to 5 NFC championship games and 1 Super Bowl. 4 of those NFC title games were in a row. And Donovan McNabb played a huge role in that success. 6-time Pro Bowler, 2000 to 2004, and again in 2009. Already an Eagles Hall of Famer. If he won a Super Bowl, Donovan McNabb would be in Canton. He'd be a Hall of Famer. The lack of accuracy, an issue for him for sure. Completion percentage for his career at 59%. So to answer your question, Jalen Hurts not better than Donovan McNabb yet, but has the opportunity to go down as the best Eagles quarterback in the history of this organization if he continues to be consistent, returns back to that 2022 form, and wins that Super Bowl. BDG Bullet, do you think that if Jason Kelce becomes a coach, that the offensive line will improve a lot? There's not really a lot of room to improve that offensive line because they've been elite for a long time. Number one, Howie Roseman has always invested in that offensive line as part of his team building strategy. It's always the position group that he focuses on outside of the quarterback and outside of bulking up that defensive line on the defensive side of the ball. The Eagles have done a really good job of drafting and developing offensive linemen and then also signing offensive linemen in free agency, a la, a Jason Peters. How about what they've done with the development, though, of Lane Johnson, Jason Kelce, Landon Dickerson, Jordan Mailata, a former rugby player? A lot of that is due to Jeff Stoutland being this team's offensive line coach. He's the best offensive line coach in football. So when you have Howie Roseman, who puts resources into the offensive line, and then you have Jeff Stoutland coaching them up, it leads to the Eagles being a terrific offensive line team and them having a terrific offensive line unit. Now, if Jason Kelce becomes an offensive line coach at some point, given his playing career, a future Hall of Famer, best center in the history of this organization, and him learning under Jeff Stoutland, I think that he can succeed in that role. But the Eagles' offensive line has already been fantastic. Stoutland is 62. Does Kelce take over for him at some point? It wouldn't be crazy to me. It wouldn't surprise me. Jesus M., will the Eagles' tackling improve? I hope so. Earlier this week, we did a very interesting show that I haven't seen anybody else talk about on YouTube. And it was a report from Tim McManus of ESPN talking about the Eagles' practice habits going into training camp, which begins on Tuesday. And led by Vic Fangio and a collaboration between him and Nick Sirianni, the Eagles are going to coach longer, practice longer. And as part of that, I imagine they're going to put the pads on a little bit more. They're going to try to up the physicality. They're going to tackle to the ground a little bit more often. And they're going to be a more physical football team. And I think in turn, they're going to improve their tackling. Under Nick Sirianni, historically, the Eagles have practiced less as far as overall volume of practices. Last year, they did more walkthroughs. But teams in the new CBA are allotted to practice for an hour and a half. Sometimes Eagles practices would be an hour, hour and 10 minutes. Vic Fangio got in the ear of Nick Sirianni and said, we have to practice more. And I think that helps out the fundamentals, the sloppiness, the Eagles being more organized, more in sync, more in rhythm. And that's something to keep an eye out for in 2024. Dennis designs a $50 super chat. Howie's been quiet lately. He may be up to a big move. I am thinking with Cooper DeJean at the slot, we can release Avonte Maddox once and for all. He will never be a safety. I think Avonte Maddox getting safety reps is like worst case scenario. He did play safety in that wild card round against Tampa Bay, and I don't like the instincts that he has. He's a little bit small for that position. When he's played safety, sometimes he's over-pursued a little bit. I think it's strictly just a depth type of let's see what he can do at that safety spot because we're a little bit thin at the safety position. Keep in mind, Philadelphia was willing to experiment with James Bradberry getting safety reps. You make a good point with Cooper DeJean. I think he's this team's best capable player and has the most ability in playing slot nickel. That's been my thought all along. I don't think he's an outside guy at the NFL level. I think he's a slot guy, and I think you use him in a Malcolm Jenkins way, versatile chess piece, C.J. Gardner-Johnson way, Swiss Army knife, Tyrann Mathieu type of player, Trent McDuffie. You put him in that role where he can make plays on the football in the pass game, make plays against the run, but be instinctual to be in the slot nickel, play a little hybrid linebacker, include them in blitz packages, maximize your playmakers. As for Howie Roseman making a big move, what could it be? I don't think the Niners are going to trade away Brandon Ayuk. I don't think the Eagles are going to make a trade for a guy like Brandon Ayuk. But could Howie Roseman say, F it, Brandon Ayuk's on the final year of his deal. We have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. We have questions at wide receiver 3. Let's take away from a great team in the Niners who we're competing with and against for NFC supremacy, take them away, and we'll give them a contract extension because it makes them worse and makes us better. Again, that would be a shocking move. I think it's more of off-ball linebacker, safety. Maybe the Eagles try to fortify defensive end, defensive tackle a little bit. Maybe they sign Justin Simmons or another safety. Andrew Nathan, Chase, how do you think Vic Fangio will impact training camp practices, and do you expect to see a free agency signing on defense or a free agency signing on offense by the end of next week? I think the Eagles are going to have a little bit of a buffer zone at the start of training camp to see where their roster is. Let's see how the safeties perform. Let's see if there are any injuries that happen. And that's to be said for probably both sides of the football, right? As far as Vic Fangio impacting training camp practices, I talked about that earlier on the show. I think they're going to be a little bit more physical. And with the experience that he has, I know the Eagles are adapting to a new scheme, but that defense was firing on all cylinders during the spring. They dominated a new offensive system with Kellen Moore during OTAs and mandatory minicamp. And Vic Fangio is going to be hard on these players. He's going to hold them accountable. And he has so much more experience as compared to Sean Desai, who had 1 year play calling experience. So the Eagles' defense is going to be much more organized. And I can't wait to see it. So longer practices, more physical practices, and then he's going to coach these players up. Not going to let bullshit fly. Be sure to subscribe to us here on Eagles Now. Have a fantastic end to your weekend. And with Eagles training camp getting underway, we're going to give you some great updates right here on the show. Dennis Designs! $50 super chat! E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles! Flipping the Bird said Eagles Super Bowl champs. That would be lit. Chip and I will be on a flight to Philadelphia if that happens, documenting everything. That is a guarantee. All right, we are at $82 in Super Chats. Can we get to 100? I think we're going to be able to get there. It only takes a 20. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go prepare the beer boot, and by the time I come back here, we better be past $100 in Super Chats. So Chip, he's going to take it away, and I'm going to get this beer boot ready, and then we'll sign off.
Come on, baby. Who's going to be the one to get us there? Dennis got a big chunk. He did a lot of the heavy lifting. He put the team on his back. Now we need someone to carry it across the goal line. Who's going to take that brotherly shove, take it up the middle, and finish it off? Who's going to do it? BDG, I wanted to get to some more of your questions because you asked a lot of questions. Couldn't get them all on there. But one that you asked that I was intrigued by as well. Do you think Devontae Smith will have a good fantasy year this year? I do. You know, I know he's a number 2, but in the Eagles offense, I think there's room for him as a number 2 to still have a really productive season. I'd be trying to target him. You know, if I'm in a 12-team league, I don't think he'd be a top 12 receiver for me, just off the top of the dome. But he's a very high-end wide receiver too, in my opinion. Fantasy-wise. Real life, he's a wide receiver 1. No doubt about it. I mean, he'd be the wide receiver 1 on a lot of other teams. Andrew Nathan says, Chip, what team are you playing as in CFB 25 Dynasty? I actually just last night started a dynasty as Temple. I started a Temple Dynasty last night. I got through my first season. Let me tell you, it's not easy. It's not easy. I don't want to talk about week 1. I don't want to talk about it.
It wasn't 73-7, was it?
Not quite.
That's what my week 1 was.
Not quite. I didn't play it. I simulated it.
Oh, what was it?
I think it was like 45-14, I think. Not too bad.
Hey, that's a good way to start the season.
Got this Oklahoma fan over here. But yeah, started as Temple. Hard to get recruits, I'll tell you that. Very, very difficult. Lamont, what's up, Lamont? Andrew Nathan, do you have a CFB? Are you starting a dynasty? Let me know what school you're starting as, if you are. I also started a Road to Glory mode as a quarterback for Rutgers. But haven't dived too much into that yet. What up, Tommy Curzio? Go Birds. Hey, we're 20 away from this beer boot. We can't let Chase get back. And we're not at the 100 for the beer boot, man. We got to get there. Dennis Designs getting us there, getting us close. Halfway there. Dennis with the 10. Says Chip wants one too. I'll tell you what. If someone sends in a 50, I'll do a beer bong. I'll do a beer bong for a 50. So we're 10 away. Is someone other than Dennis gonna get us there? Dennis got us even closer. But we're 10 away. Come on, baby. We're so close.
Tommy Curzio, what up, bruh?
We're so close.
Beer boot. We're waiting. We're here. We're ready. Let's go. We're actually, 9 away. 9 away.
9 away.
All right, I'm just going to start taking it down. I think we're going to get there. 3 beers, 1 boot for Dennis Designs. Flipping the bird. Byron Nails.
Got us there.
Okay. Oh, Byron got us there. Let's go. And then I think I saw Jeff Phillips a little bit earlier. This is for you. Go Birds. Here's us winning the big one from Byron.
Love it.
Taking down the big beer boot.
Chug, 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 chug. Going with a 2-hand grip here. Smart. Chug, 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 chug. Oh.
Woo!
Go Birds!
E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles! All right, we're about to sign off. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. Again, training camp getting underway on Tuesday. I will be live on Wednesday because I'm going to Mexico on Thursday. So live show Wednesday, a week from today, right here, Eagles Now. We'll provide some really good training camp coverage and we'll bring you the latest right here on Eagles Now. For Chip, I'm Chase. For the Bird Gang, we out. Peace.